So it's time for the real talk. And I think you just heard, unless you skipped ahead, you just heard me say that this is the second half of Fergie's Tesseract mailbox question. And he was wondering how I do what I do and how I manage my time because he says that I appear to be pretty productive and he wants to know how I do it with children and a wife and all of that. So I thought it would be really cool if I walked you through the average day in the life of Pimpcron and give you the tips that I have learned and maybe some direction into helping to make yourself more efficient and more productive in your personal time. And this is in no way trying to come off as I know it all. It's not trying to preach to you. It's not trying to say, oh, look, you're not doing good enough, because God knows we are all in different situations. Some of you guys travel a ton. Some of you guys have children with special needs, or some of you have your own special needs, or some of you live with other people and it's not conducive to hobbying, or whatever. Maybe your job is super demanding, you come home, you're exhausted. So don't listen to this segment being too hard on yourself, but I will say that everybody has room for improvement. Whether it's a 1% improvement or maybe it's a 100% improvement, you could find ways to make yourself more efficient and use your time more wisely and be more productive. So I don't care whether you're, the president or whoever, you do have at least a tiny amount of wiggle room that you can be more efficient with your time no matter how busy you are. I guess we should get started. There are several things that are huge time sinks. I do know that the average person watches a lot of media, whether it be TV or YouTube or whatever. That is a huge, huge, huge time sink. What I normally do is my family and I, we don't even have TV. We have a TV. We own a TV, but we don't have any cable. We don't have any satellite. We don't have anything like that. So, and that was a conscious choice because I would rather be productive than just watching stuff. My brother makes fun of us and calls us Little House on the Prairie and all of that because we live a very simple life. My brother's the one with the, iPhone watch and the security cameras with the special um I would say Wi-Fi, special server, and he's got a special computer just to run his security system, and then he gets notifications through his truck when his heat comes on, and I'm just making stuff up, but you get the point. Like, he's very connected. He's very, very connected. And he always laughs at me because, we live in the country and we're just not very connected with stuff. So I'm not saying that watching TV or watching YouTube is the devil or anything like that, but it is a huge time sink. That the same thing goes for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. It is if you actually get this, okay? You can go in the settings of your phone and see your power usage, or you can go through the parental control guides, and pretty much every phone has parental controls. And you can go through it and you can set timers for your apps. I have a 30-minute timer for Facebook every day, 30 minutes. And that's all I do. And then once that goes off, of course, you can always extend it, yada, yada. You're an adult, but I mean, you shouldn't. I was finding myself spending like an hour and a half on Facebook a day. And obviously, it wasn't all at the same time. It's 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, whatever. But that's an hour and a half of my life. I'm never getting back. I've already said I'm in my 30s. I'm not getting younger here, people. So go on your phone and find out a way to see your usage and the time that you spend on the different apps. It's usually in the parental controls. And then most of the parental controls will allow you to set timers for stuff, and it will lock you out of the program until you extend it or put in a code or whatever. And I'm telling you right now, that is a great way to limit the amount of time you're watching YouTube or on Facebook or whatever. I know some people that are on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. Oh, God, help me if it's TikTok. TikTok every single day, all day. My mom is sending me stuff nonstop on these messenger apps. And it's just nuts. And there's nothing wrong with it inherently. It's just that it's a huge waste of time. And we get into these habits, these really easily addictive habits. And, don't feel bad about it because all these apps and everything, especially Facebook and the social media sites, are designed to get their hooks in you and soak up as much of your attention as possible for ad revenue or just addiction's sake so that you're more integrated in their service. So don't feel bad about it. I mean, you could feel guilty about, oh, I spent too much time on Facebook. No, there should be no emotion attached to that. It is designed to be a trap for your mind. So just limit it. It doesn't mean you got to give it up cold turkey. And I see people do all that all the time. Oh, I'm quitting Facebook. And then like a year later, 6 months later, up, they're back on. And what has helped? Nothing has really changed. So the best thing to do is just do it in moderation. Like that's what nutritionists and doctors say all the time. Most things in life are okay in moderation. Even like bad foods, if you had junk food once a week, you are not going to have ill effects from that. So it just goes to say, just do everything in moderation. But all of those online things and television is a huge time sink. So what do we do for that? Well, number one, I have YouTube Premium, so I can turn off the screen of my phone while I'm hobbying, doing yard work, whatever. I think I mentioned that last week. And I just listen to YouTube or podcasts. That's what I listen to in my free time, but I'm actively doing something. If you're watching a screen, you're not actively doing anything. And it makes life a lot easier because you can do yard work or whatever and listen to that. So I won't belabor that topic anymore. But what TV do we watch? Well, my family and I have the habit, and we have done this ever since the children were little. We like to watch DVDs of things. We will watch Star Trek or whatever and slowly go through all the seasons of Star Trek. And then we watched, ironically, all the seasons of Little House on the Prairie and Justice League, the cartoon, and things like that. But we don't watch a lot of it. About four nights a week, we will sit down as a family and we will watch a single episode of Star Trek. That is 40 to 42 minutes long. That's about 4 times a week. I mean, if you think about that, that's really not that much. And my wife pops popcorn. We all sit on the couch together. Make sure everyone gets showers first, so you're in their pajamas, and you sit there and snuggle with your kids and watch some Star Trek. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's one of my favorite things to do, and that's what we do. Now, I watch maybe 1 episode or 2 episodes of Baki, a horrible, horrible. Eventually, I'm going to review it. One of the very worst mangas, cringeworthy to the max, I've ever seen. I watched that with my son, and we love to cringe at it because it's awful. So we watch 1 to 2 episodes of that a week, and they're 20 minutes apiece. And then me and my 2 oldest daughters will sit and watch Demon Slayer about once or twice a week, and that's about 20 minutes each. So you'll see that's not a whole lot. You know what I mean? Even if we watch Star Trek in one of those episodes of one of those shows in one night, that's only an hour. Where versus like when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we came home, and while my family was never a movie family, because I know a lot of people will throw movies on and watch movies all weekend or whatever. My family was never like that. But the TV was on like 24 hours a day, even if no one was watching it. But we'd come home from school, we'd get our schoolwork done, and then we'd watch TV. And then we'd watch TV for an hour or two during the block of after school programming, and then we'd go eat dinner, and then we watch more TV. I mean, we weren't necessarily couch potatoes because we did do other things. I was into sports and all that, but we watched a heck of a lot of TV. And of course, you're talking about the 90s, so it was a little bit different of a time. But that's why when I had my own household, I was like, screw that. I'm not watching a lot of TV. And you might say, even if I watched a Star Trek and a Demon Slayer in the same night, you're like, oh, that's an hour, Pimpcron. I'm like, well, number one, it's an hour sitting there with my family, and we're talking about the show and stuff like that. We're bonding. So number one, that's got a dual purpose. I would not watch Demon Slayer if it weren't for my daughter, and I never even would have tried to see Baki if it weren't for my son. So that's what that is. About once every 2 weeks, I will go over to my dad's house, my parents' house, and watch football with my dad during football season. And then about once every 2 weeks on a separate day, I'll go over and watch a horror movie with my mom. And that's what I do with my parents. So those are my ways that I can spend time with the different family members. Oh, and once a week, I have a date night with my wife. We go out to our favorite restaurant, and then we come home, chill, talk, whatever. And, usually my parents watch the kids that night. And we're fortunate enough to have a sitter once a week for the kids to spend the night. And that's basically it. So if you were to really add that up, hold on, let me do the math real quick. Okay, I'm back. So if you are talking that I will go see a movie with my mom every other week, football with my dad every other week, and even if we watch 2 Demon Slayers, which we often don't, and 2 Bakis and whatever, you're only talking about 7 hours of media a week, maybe 8, depending on how long the football game runs. So if you look at it as a total number of hours in a week, right? If you talk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is 168 hours a week you have to exist. That's your maximum number of existence for that week. If you take out, let's say 40 hours for work, you're left with 128 hours the whole week. And then let's presume you get 8 hours of sleep every single night, right? That's another 56 hours in the week that you're sleeping. So you're left with 72 hours for the week. That's 10 hours a day, bro. Like, okay, so 72 hours, right? Let's say that I am watching it on average 8 hours a week. That leaves me 64 hours in the week to do stuff. 64 hours. I could get a whole full-time job in that time and work overtime. Now, I'm being ridiculous and hyperbolic because you got to eat, you got to take your kids to stuff. I mean, I spend a lot of time. I spend at least an hour 4 nights a week driving my children places, okay, to taekwondo and all that. So let's take out another 4 hours. 60 hours a week I have to do something. Okay, well, let's say taking time with the family, eating dinner and all, that's another hour every single night. Okay. So that's 53 hours a week. You have time to do whatever you want. Now, every marital situation's different, you've got different responsibilities in your household, your roommates or whatever, they interfere, of course, right? But you've got 53 hours to do whatever you want. And if you're spending a bunch of time on YouTube, if you're spending a bunch of time on um, whatever else, Netflix or whatever, that's going to eat up a lot of your time. And really, what we're talking about here is the human brain. Is really what we're talking about, because I've told my wife this before. She loves to tell me, I don't have time to do X, Y, or Z. And I say, well, you have time for whatever you make the time for. And that's exactly it. Have you ever noticed that you have your set schedule, you seem like you're busy all the time, right? But then you suddenly have to go to the grocery store and you're like, oh crap, I gotta go to the grocery store. So then you go. It takes an hour and a half to go to the grocery store and you come back. How did you fit that in? It's because you made time for it. So the best combat against this is to actively limit the amount of time that you're consuming media and materials and doing frivolous things, right? And maybe put a timer on your phone and you go, okay, if I go to bed at 10 o'clock every single night, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'm going to do something to improve my life, whether it be exercise, read a book, write a book, do any of those things. And, I don't have all the answers, right? I'm not a perfect person, but I am proud to say I am a pretty productive person. And this is not being preachy or anything like that, but that is where I find my time to work on brutality and Shorehammer and all those things. For instance, the last couple weeks before work, I've been in a crunch trying to finish Brutal Space. I've got a ton of people on Facebook that are anxiously awaiting Brutal Space, and I have to keep buying test copies, and then I edit them, and then I have to buy the new copy that's edited so that I can edit it again. But then it takes like a week to 2 weeks for them to make it and send it to me. So it's like a long process, and I desperately don't want to have a subpar product. So before work, I usually don't have to be at work this time of year until like 8:30, let's say. I wake up at 7. I set my alarm. I wake up at 7. I get up and I work on Brutal Space from 7 to 8, 7 to 8:15. I live close to work, and then I go to work. I come home from work, and of course, you've got dinner and you've got to drive the kids here and there, right? But we're usually done with all of our stuff, whether it be dinner or taekwondo or watching a Star Trek or whatever. We're usually done by 9 o'clock. So then I set aside that time after you read books to the children and all that. From 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I work on Brutal Space. So right there, during the work week, I get 10 hours of working on Brutal Space every single week. And that's how I do it. So I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you do it? Blah, blah, blah. Even if you don't want to go through all the math of figuring up what you do and how much time you waste doing this or that, right? Because everyone's life is different and everyone's stress level is different. But if you could just take 1 hour a day, then that's 7 hours a week, or at least 5 hours a week on the weekdays, that you're doing something that's improving your life or being productive or just doing something you don't want to do. And it was something that really, really hit me when I was a young person. And it's that stupid old adage, I'm sure you've heard of it, that if you take one step every day, you're 365 steps towards your goal at the end of the year. And that really, really struck me. So ever since then, I've tried to dedicate at least a small portion of every single day to doing something that I want to do for fun. And that ends up being stress relief for me. It ends up being a creative outlet for me and all of that. So there's really no magic behind it or anything like that. I think in the end, the best thing you can take from this is if you want to improve your efficiency, improve your productivity, and make better use of your time. Because remember, we're only on this planet for so long and then we're not here anymore. So you probably want to limit your time on media, period, whether it be social media or anything that has your eyes glued to it, right? You can keep listening to this podcast, listen to YouTube like I do, or radio or whatever. But you want to limit your time. You can very easily do that through apps. And I mean, apps on your phone, not even apps that you have to download, like the parental guideline controls on your phone. And then the other thing you want to do is carve out, and you can do it, I guarantee you, you can do it. Carve out just a small amount of time every day to do something productive. So if it takes you a full week because you're so busy, takes you a full week to paint a single model, that's fine. Paint 10 minutes on it one night and you paint the face. And then you paint the shirt the next night. And then you paint the pants the next night. And then the boots the next night. I mean, you're getting stuff done. At the end of the week, you still have a model painted. And at the end of the year, you'd have 52 models painted. So it definitely does line up. And it's a real issue with our human brain that we just don't really realize time passing. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, look how old I am. I haven't done X, Y, or Z. I haven't done the things I wanted to do. It's very easy to get distracted. So, like I said, I'm not preaching to anybody. This is just my philosophy. And you can blame Fergie for asking me. And hopefully you guys can implement this. If you do and you find that it helps you, then please let me know. I'd love to know that I positively impacted somebody. But that's the secret behind the Pimpcron. Thank you, Fergie, once again for the email. Thank you to GameMat.eu for supporting the show and Panhandle3D.com for supporting the show as well as the beautiful, sexy, good smelling Patreon patrons. I'll see you next week, people.